And on today's show, we have two very special guests from the Stacy Nelson and Associates agency. We have Stacy Nelson herself, the founder of the agency, as well as Jenny Pang, who is a senior consultant for Stacy Nelson Associates. So it's very, very awesome to have you both here. We're going to be talking about resume building and interview prep. This show is meant to inform you guys on, again, this is a very important part of getting a job or getting into an internship, or just a really good life skill to have. So we're really excited to go over all of that with you both today. But again, you guys can introduce yourselves, so go right ahead.
Yeah. Okay, Jenny, I'll go.
Yeah, go for it.
So Javier, so thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here. As we were saying earlier, we met at one of the events for First Five Marin, where we met Dr. Artico Garcia, who's on the commission board there. So it was a great connection, and we placed the executive director there. So what Stacy Nelson and Associates does is we are an executive search firm for nonprofits. So we specialize specifically in nonprofits, and I've been in business for over 20 years. And Jenny and I met through many ways, I think.
Yeah, but mostly Bridge the Gap College Prep, where I shared that I used to work there for about 5 years. So I was the director of finance and admin, which included human resources, and that's how Stacy and I professionally met, because she helped us a lot in recruiting teachers and other staff members, and yeah, so that's our connection. And then when I left and joined Stacy to work with her agency and pretty much helping her with searches with nonprofit organizations.
Mm-hmm. So Jenny and I were in many an interview together. And so when she reached out and said, hey, I'm looking like, I feel like I should hire you right away because we know exactly how each other works.
Yeah.
A lot of when you look for a job is really, you do those networking, those information interviews. And that's kind of how it started. And we looked at each other at lunch thinking, well, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for sharing that background. I wanted to ask, so before we get right into it, I wanted to ask everyone in the table, what is your favorite summer snack? Like what do you like to eat or snack on a hot day? Because it's been really hot these past few days.
It has.
I'm just curious.
Jenny, do you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. I actually just recently been making lots of popsicles, so I don't know if that qualifies as snacks, but I've got a big lemon tree. So I've been saving all those lemons and making lemon sorbet and lemon popsicle. And recently
limoncello.
Limoncello. Not so much of limoncello because then I wouldn't get through my day. But watermelon with lime popsicle, that's something I've just been trying. And I have to say, I'm a big fan. Yeah.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
So I have a 13-year-old, and so we just had a sleepover last night, and we're all a little tired. But for them, because they came home as their camp counselors, so they came home and they were really hot. So we had cantaloupe, and I've been buying cantaloupe and peaches like crazy and cutting them up and making like a little fruit salad. So that's kind of my go-to, treat right now.
That sounds too healthy, Stacey.
How about you, Santi?
Well, for me, I think after a good workout, my favorite snack or post-workout that I would consider a snack is a smoothie, a protein smoothie, which is like mixing it with ice and just how cold it is and just being able to drink that is really nice for me.
Yeah.
Or traditionally in my household, we cut up watermelon or apples, and we just put lemon, salt, and a little bit of seasoning, but it's like spicy seasoning,
like tagine.
Yeah, something similar.
Yeah.
But my grandma sends us our own from Guatemala, so
nice.
So that's my favorite snack especially during the summer. Watermelon is the best combination, in my opinion. That would be my favorite snacks.
Yeah, well, You stole the one I was going to say. Yeah. I mean, it's very, I feel like it's common in most Latino households or in most households in general. But yeah, definitely for me, it's always been watermelon. Like ice cold watermelon. Like you got to leave it cool for a long time. And then it's just, it's amazing. And I also enjoy it a lot with tajin, but as well, I put chamoy, which is like it's like a sweet, it's not hot it's not spicy, but it's like a sweet spiciness. So it's really good. I definitely recommend you guys try it on your water.
called?
Chamoy, like CHAMOY.
Okay.
Yeah, it's used a lot.
good.
Okay, I got to
Yeah.
write that down. Sounds
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I definitely recommend it. But yeah, that's how I like enjoying
Yeah.
during the summertime for
It's
sure.
been hot. We're kind of lucky that it hasn't been like the 120 degrees like in some of the other states right now.
Yeah, well, I was saying that like
Mind.
it's like it's been recorded as some of the most hot days in the United States these past like last week.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it was not too hot last week here,
Yeah.
but it was I guess the fair was last week. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
But yeah. But thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always great to hear again what everyone likes to treat on during the summer. So moving right along, I wanted to start with job search and resume prep. So one question I want to start off with is, well, where do you recommend people to look for jobs? So, I mean, well, one thing is you guys could come to the career fair on August 3rd that we're holding here at the Multicultural Center of Marin from 4 to 7 p.m. We'll have some employers, we'll have some internships, we'll have all sorts of resources for those who are looking for a job or just a place to work at. So we'll get a little bit more into that. And anyways, enough with the selfless plug. So yeah, where would you guys recommend, I guess, young people to go and look for a job?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, I would start by asking a lot of questions. What type of job, where have they looked so far? How has their success been? Sometimes when you look for a job, you have to look for the right fit? Like, are your skill sets matching what you're looking for? But a lot of jobs are posted out there on the big job boards, LinkedIn or Indeed. In the nonprofit, there's also a lot of other nonprofit job boards like idealist.org. There's also California Association of Nonprofits. There's a lot of different things to look at. And then there's also networking, like doing informational interviews, people that you know, with talking to mentors, going to career fairs, like with, that you're having. And what else would you add, Jenny?
Yeah, I think definitely signing up to those big job platforms, LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter. And I think the more specific you have in mind in terms of what you're looking for, the industry, probably the better. Because, for example, if you go to Indeed, you want to sign up they'll ask you, what kind of industry do you want? And then you get emails that say there's an opportunity there. So I think that's a good starting point. Job fair, as you mentioned. And definitely also, again, if you know what you're looking for. So, for example, my son just went through a job search. He came home for summer and he wants to work with cars. And he literally just went to Google and print out all the garages. And he went by and just dropped his resume. So that takes more time, that takes more effort, and that's very local. But it's a start.
Ooh, I
That's
like
cool.
that.
Yeah. So, of course, the advantage of that is you're making a connection. You're walking up, you're introducing yourself. So you're already sort of making just that contact, right? Now, that's not possible for every single job that you want to do, but if it's something that you're just starting up for experience, that could be another avenue to consider. So yeah, and as we also mentioned, network, talk to people, your feelers out there that you're looking, and who knows, somebody might give you a phone number or contact.
A lot of it, I love that your son did that too, because a lot of it is the research, like figure out what's that, like if it's sound engineering, like what are the organizations in this area, the venues that are doing that, and then targeting those. It could be like reaching out and saying, oh, the studio manager is so and so. Okay, who do I know that knows that person?
Yeah.
And looking on LinkedIn to see who that might be and getting introductions. Like it's always great to do that and walk down and, and send an email. I mean, there's different ways to make it happen.
Yeah, and I also want to add to that because I remember when I was starting out, even before I went to college, I was trying to look for studios to intern at. But one thing that I also want to just warn people about is to not overdo it. Like don't be there and just be like, oh well, I can help you out with this or I can help you out that, because that's unfortunately what I kind of did. Because I was really eager to like just start doing it, and that's good. It's good to be eager about that stuff. But at the same time, you need to understand that like not everyone can just hire you or has a position even available. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when you're young, you think that you could just get your foot in the door through everything, and sometimes it can work out. Sometimes it can, but also. And it could also go the other way around. Let's say that you just ask and then they just immediately shut you down. Don't feel bad about that.
Yep.
You should just be like, oh, okay, well, I got to just keep looking somewhere else. Don't let one experience let you down. Right.
I totally agree, Javier. I think that's a really good point to make. Like you're going to get a lot of rejections. We all do in life, and particularly when we're looking for jobs. And it's not a rejection of you personally. It's just that they may not have the opening available. People plan usually for staffing, like, at the beginning of their budget year. So like that's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Somebody leaves. So, when you approach it, you could say, I'm just from an informational networking, do you know if anything's coming up? I'd love to, be considered. And you don't want to be pesty about it.
Exactly.
Like you want them to have a good feeling about you and that relationship. But yeah, no, I think that's a really, really good point to make.
You want to add, Sandy?
No, I totally agree with everything you guys have been saying. I want to focus a little bit on the finding. You mentioned a resume, and we'll get into that, but really finding a job and what to apply for, at least for a lot of youth, they don't really know at times what they're really into or what industry they're into. What are some questions that you guys would recommend to ask, when ourselves when looking for a job and seeing if it's worth your time applying to a job position?
That's, I think we both could go on and on about that. One thing, in looking at a job description, it's funny because we write job descriptions every day. It's what's not in the job description is sometimes what to think about, and the way they're describing the organization. I just finished a job description for an organization that's getting ready to launch for a CEO, and they wanted to put a lot of like the culture, the values, and that says a lot about who they are. There was like, we were laughing yesterday because, this organization is not the case, but if it says, jump in right away. And, like there's little nuances, like that means there's not a lot of training or onboarding there, or, we've grown really fast and we're trying to build infrastructure. Well, that tells you a lot too about the organization. Like they're growing fast, but they may not have all the tools ready for you in place to do your role at that particular time. So there's different ways to kind of see it. And then also you can go and what is their rating on Glassdoor? Are the
What is that?
Oh, so Glassdoor is a place where you can go, glassdoor.com, and people post, like 5 stars or 3 stars, like people that actually work at the organization, and they'll give you like pretty good information about, is this a great place to work?
Oh, okay.
Glassdoor, okay.
Glassdoor, are they overworking us?
Yeah.
And you can also get salary information through
perfect.
that. Yeah. Also, salary.com is another source.
Salary.com.
Salary.com. There's, and you may already know this, but California just had a new law that came out that for every job description, the salary has to be posted on there, which is great because now you know. I mean, it's before like we want to make sure that it's accessible and equitable for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like if somebody was getting, you know, like female, you know, maybe we're not getting paid enough compared to other, you know, a guy there. So this evens the playing field.
Interesting. I did not know that. Okay.
And with nonprofit, you can look up their 990 to see how people are paid as well. Usually for the executive team, but so you can look up.
Sorry, what's 990?
A 990 is a tax form that you can just look up through GuideStar for
GuideStar.
nonprofits.
Oh,
And so the other thing you can look up is the financial statements or the 990 for a nonprofit that gives you some of that information. So I think, you know, you're interviewing them too. So ask questions, do research about the organization, make sure that they're stable, sustainable. You know, what's the tenure like for employees there? Why did the person leave? There's a lot of, you know, have you like, what's the growth like? What's the training like? Anyway, I can go on and on.
yeah.
No, those are all really good points. I think Glassdoor, I always think of it's the Yelp.
Yeah, it's like the
of the career world.
Oh.
So they rate you, you know, you rate an organization. But I think just to expand on to add to what Stacey said, it is true when you're sort of, this is your first, or when you're just starting to look for a position or a job, often you don't know what you're looking for. You have a vague idea what you could be interested in, whether it's function, whether it's a function meaning marketing, engineering, software programming. And then the other aspect you'll be thinking about is industry, right? Whether is it music or is it
Film.
or in
Beauty.
healthcare, beauty. So you have a rough idea what that, but you probably don't know what specifically you want. So I think the key is being really open-minded about it. Every job is, I would see, as an opportunity to hone down what you like.
Absolutely.
So you may walk into an industry or a firm, you think, I want to do marketing. But even if the marketing position may not be there, or just say, well, we don't have a marketing, but we have sales or something. If that's an industry you're interested in, I would encourage you, do it. Do it. Because one, you're going in, you're making connections, networking. You get to learn about the industry. So this may not be what you started out looking, but it could expand from there. And also, you're building your resume. Yeah. So the next job you interview, you already got that I work there and this. And, you know, this is sort of how you slowly build up your resume and also figuring out with time what really interests you.
That's great advice, Jenny.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Again, you guys couldn't have said any of that better. It really is the progress, right? Of even when you think that maybe a position, like like you said, picking an industry that you're interested in is one thing. But then getting to know the specific positions in that industry, and like even though if you, let's say, like you said, for me personally, when I applied for this job, I wasn't really into podcasting or radio or any of that stuff. I was just really into audio engineering. So I was more interested in like recording music and all that. But then I'm here now and I love this. I love being able to like, because again, a lot of it translates to other positions. Like you can sprinkle it in and I don't know. It just forms out. And like you said, it's just great for having a resume already built and getting yourself out there and meeting new people as well.
Yep.
But
I
yeah.
absolutely agree with that. And you've mentioned a lot about building your resume and adding on to it. But for a lot of the youth, resume is new, or they've heard the word, but they don't know exactly what it is. So what is a resume and why is it important? And you guys can both answer.
You go first, Jenny. I think you're really good at this.
So I would say resume is representing a snapshot of yourself, meaning who you are most probably somebody who's starting out, you give your education background, what's your major, what area of studies. And then it's really just what you had done, whether if it's work. Now that, when you're starting out, again, people don't expect a really elaborate work experience, but that's okay. Sometimes I think they may be looking for is, do you sort of just get in there and do things, whether it's volunteer, whether if it's been involved in school activities, summer jobs, internships. Don't think about paid jobs, right? So if you're just starting out, it's more just what have you done outside school or even school leadership roles. All those are important. So it's really giving them a sense of what you like to do, what you've done in the past. Now, if you've been in the employment world for a few years, then you can start putting down, let's say I've worked in Safeway and I've done this. And then there are sort of more techniques to it. You want to list no more than 4 or 5 bullet points of that, what you've done in an organization. And as you progress through the employment world, your resume is going to get longer. So this is when now you really want to make sure you're not going to write an essay, 3-page, because people have a lot of resumes, and it will be you'll be surprised. Most people will go through resumes within less than a minute. It's really just yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Now, of course, they're just looking for specific skills for a specific job. So they may just kind of go through and pick out the relevant experiences. And if you're applying online, nowadays they have algorithms that they are just looking for keywords from your resume. Wow. So they're not even people reading their resumes, right?
AI is real.
Yeah, AI is
That's
real.
insane.
So speaking about, the keywords, how would you figure that out then?
Okay.
To really stand out,
Great
right?
question.
Yeah.
Well, the job description. When you're looking at the post, spend a lot of time really reading what they're looking for. And then when you are doing your resume, this is where customizing your resume really matters, because you want to match what you've done to what words they're using. Even if it's the same job, same function, you want to pick out what's written on their job description and try to incorporate it into your resume. So when the person reads it, a recruiter would go like, okay, she's done this. Or if an algorithm goes through your resume, that's what they're going to pick.
And we get matches on, say we get 200 applicants for a job, our platform will say, and other recruiters' platforms will say, this applicant matches, 2 out of the 10 or 5 out of the 10. And so they start getting stacked based upon those algorithms. So that's the first screen. And then, of course, we go back and look at them more deeply. But it is a big part of, it's definitely changed the industry. AI is a really big part of just kind of making that research process a lot shorter than it used to be.
Because that's what it seems like. I think every time there's an innovation, at least in any kind of context, it's always about either speeding it up. You know what I mean? Speeding things up. Because like you said, employers do go through a lot of resumes. They go through a lot of different interviews. And we'll get into interviews. But thank you again for reiterating that fact. Because I've always been told, I've built like 3 different resumes in my time. And I remember the biggest critique that I'd always get is just list literally this, that's it. Because, the employers aren't going to be looking through. You're not impressing them by having like a huge stack of, oh, look at how much experience I got. You know what I mean? Like they already have that already in mind that you have some experience. They just want to know what are the key kind of points, or like what are the key positions that you've been in, and if that fits what you were saying, their job description, what they're looking for, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I just had a question based on what you were talking about when kind of connecting the two, the job description and your resume. One of the questions that usually comes up in or writing your resume is, what skills do you have? And for me, I was puzzled at that because I didn't want to just write leadership skills or I wanted to explain what that was. Are there any books, websites, articles that you recommend where people can kind of dig deep and see what that really means? Because I know leadership, to me, it's one word, but there's so much that goes into it. And so, yeah, just my curiosity on that.
Well, that's a really good question because, as recruiters, we're also like, how do you qualify or, that metric of like what makes a leader, right? How do you put that into a resume? But I would ask you, like, what was the leadership experience that you had that you wanted to talk about in your resume?
Yeah. So, for example, the position that I was applying for, it was mentoring the youth and kind of coordinating programs where they can go to. But in their job description, it talked about leadership, mentoring, and I spoke to the employer, and he was the one who offered the job, and he said, make sure that you don't just write you have leadership skills, like really express what you do. And I looked kind of, okay, what does that entail? Not just on leadership skills, on mentoring, how do you describe mentoring where it really explains what you're doing and not just having like leadership, mentoring. I'm very, excited, giving examples of that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Like it could be where you were mentoring college students through a particular program, or being like, a lot of times telling a story during an interview helps a lot to understand what that meant on your resume.
Okay.
So I would definitely encourage you to give stories as examples. Sure, instead of saying I have leadership skills, I would say, I've had this experience where I mentored, and then describe what you did and the outcome. I think thinking about, here's what I did and here is the outcome, which is measurable, like you've been successful at it.
Yeah. And so just also another technical thing is, I know some resumes include like a letter or cover letter. Do you think that is necessary to have on your resume?
Yes. Did we say that together?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And could you just go over the cover letter and why?
Yeah. So a lot of clients, if a candidate doesn't have their cover letter, they ask for it. Can they send a cover letter, no matter what their skill set looks like? And a cover letter is a writing sample, for one. It also should talk about why you're interested in the particular role. Like why are you specifically applying for this role? That's what we're looking for. That's what our clients are looking for. We're looking for typos, not only in the cover letter, but in the resume. Like, did this person proofread? It's always a really good idea to have someone other than yourself look at and proofread, because when you're looking at your resume and your cover letter a million times, sometimes you'll miss something. So, because we look at so many all the time, they stand out really fast, and then that could take somebody out of the running.
So having good grammar can make you stand out.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, now we have AI where you can put a cover letter, into AI and it'll spill out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Or we have Grammarly. So there's, that checks the grammar or spell check. And all of those things are fantastic. I mean, we use them as well.
Yeah.
I would also encourage, if you do an AI cover letter, or, you can ask AI to do anything these days, is to customize it yourself, because it does have a specific language or kind of formality to it. And so I think we could definitely tell if it's an AI kind of generated letter. So I would caution to, you don't want to overuse that.
I would. I know that there's a lot of people using like Chat GPT, right, to like create even essays now, right? They write their whole essay.
Yeah.
But one thing when it comes to writing a cover letter, especially, something that's you personally are
Yeah.
applying for, it should really come from you.
Yeah.
Because it's your voice that you're putting into words.
That's right.
And that's very, very important because you want to live up to what you say. You know what I mean? I mean, personally, I wouldn't want to use the AI to do that, But I know there's some people out there that will do it because they just don't feel comfortable in their own writing or they don't know how to put their voice or their thoughts into writing. But I encourage you at least to use like Grammarly. I think, like you're saying, Grammarly is actually a really, really useful tool to have because that just, checks everything and makes sure that it looks good. Because I mean, writing in its own self is a practice. You have to. It's something that you get better at the more you do, like language. So yeah.
And I would also add, cover letter actually is a real opportunity for you to bring your resume to life. Meaning, so as Stacy says, you want to explain why you are interested in this position. What is it about that organization that really appeals to you? So this is the time for you to talk about what's so exciting about this organization. And then also pick a couple of those skills or experiences on your resume to how this can help and why would that make you a good fit. So think about cover letter as sort of your talking points before an interview. Tell them, help them see. They may not make that connection, but the cover letter gives you that platform to connect what you've done in the past and why it would make you a great candidate.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going. But I wanted to hear more of like your recommendations on that because that's what I kind of. I've never done a resume before. I kind of gotten the opportunities myself, just kind of throwing myself into internships and slowly build my way up until this for me was an opportunity to write a resume, go to the interview. And it was so new to me because I got my opportunities through networking. But when I was looking into a resume, I found it so interesting because I started reading different ones, how they kind of connected with they connected with the actual resume, right? So I really love how you connected them, the three of them, from the job description to the cover letter to the resume. They all connect in one.
Yeah. And I also want to add, just to the artists out there, another part to a resume is a portfolio. So a portfolio is just as important, I would say, as the resume because but they both complement each other. And what I recommend for a portfolio is, so for example, let's say that you want to apply to like Lucasfilm, right, to do sound or for visual effects. If you already have some projects that are like visual effects or that demonstrate like your skill level, right, for that, I would say pick that and pick whatever, make it be like a variety. You don't want to be, if you do visual effects for like a space battle or something, but then you want to do visual effects for like a fight in a city, you know what I mean? Like show your different types of, like their range, make it dynamic. Because I think that the more that employers can see like, oh, okay, they're capable of doing this, that, not just one specific type of visual effects or one specific type of sound design, then that's great. Also I know for artists like that draw, right? For digital artists and artists, traditional artists, a lot of that is just, again, showing your pieces off. I know that is more like a stylized thing, but if you show off, like, again, your different types of styles, your different types of, like, how you've worked on canvas, you've worked on, using these different oil paints, stuff like that, it's, like, again, very, very cool and, again, can help you stand out. So I just want to add that portion if you're looking to apply to an art-related job position.
I know when we look at resumes, sometimes we get they'll have the LinkedIn profile URL, but also if people have, like, collateral or different, where, like, we've worked on projects for marketing directors, communication directors, they'll have a link to their website with their work on it or their collateral there.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that makes it really easy for people to connect right away to your work, versus sending like a whole like PDF or,
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I've personally been wanting to work on too. Is just creating like even like a Weebly play just to put all my like stuff, because I have a lot of stuff I can show, but it's just like about putting it all together. And like you said, yeah, having a website makes it super easy to just look, and employers can just look at. All right, great, cool. All right, so thank you everyone for again. This has been really great. This has been really great information. I really wish I had this information when I was looking out for a job. But I wanted to. So before we move on to interviews, I do want to just again reiterate to everyone that we are having a career fair here at the Multicultural Center of Marin. We're located at 709 Fifth Avenue here at San Rafael. So again, it's on August 3rd, Thursday, from 4 to 7 p.m. Myself, Santi, Annalie, Kimberly, the whole Tay Radio crew will be there, and it's been an effort that we've all been working really hard on getting together for you guys. You can RSVP at the Multicultural Center of Marin's website at multiculturalmarin.org, but we can also put that in the description of this stream, so look out for that. And I also want to let everyone know that we are still having our open mic nights here at MCM. It's every last Friday of every month, so the next one will be on July 28th from 6 to 8 p.m. Right here, so we hope to see you guys there. But yeah, that's kind of it I had for just a couple announcements there. So, all right. So we got through the resume process, and let's say we got the job, or we didn't get the job, but we're at the next step now, which is the interview process. So the employer's interested in us, but now they want to have an interview. So Santi, do you want to kick things off with
Yes.
how to prepare?
Well, the simplest to dive into this transition from resume to prep, usually it's what do I wear? And
Great question.
just to start off there, what should I wear to an interview? And also with today, there's also Zoom interviews, which is completely different than on person and not. I prefer the actual in person, at least for me, because I like the connection. And I did have one on Zoom and I felt so disconnected, but it might be different if you have anxiety meeting in person. Maybe Zoom does work for some, but that would be my question to start off. What should I wear?
That's a great question. It's so different now since the pandemic. People are a lot more, I mean, in Marin County, here in California, we're, I think a lot more casual. I wore a jacket today, but I don't always wear a jacket. But I think just going to Zoom maybe first. We do a lot of interviews on Zoom, and we do in-person interviews as well on site at clients. And we prepare candidates first for those Zoom interviews. Obviously, we want them to research the organization and everything, but when a lot of it becomes visual at that point, and it's that first impression. So having like a jacket or something, I think just to show, that, that you're prepared, like, your hair is brushed.
Don't wear a hat.
Don't wear a hat.
Don't wear a hat.
I mean, yeah.
Well, unless, actually, that's not true.
Unless
Depends
it's
what you're interviewing for.
Yeah. If it's like a art studio, like there's so many different looks.
Yeah.
Like you kind of want to research, like, what does that culture look like? You don't want to, we've had clients where, a candidate's shown up in a 3-piece suit and it's just not the culture, so
Yeah.
that doesn't go over either. So
Interesting.
so you don't want to overdress either.
Right.
I think in a Zoom interview, what's behind you is also very important. I think a lot of people forget that. It's the lighting, look at the lighting is great in here. Sometimes people will come in Zoom and, they're like in their bedroom, or like, it's like, I don't want to see that.
You could also blur your background on Zoom now too.
Yeah, you can blur your background. And there's all these, templates that you can use to put in there too. But I think the blurred background is probably ideal because it doesn't distract from you, and you should be the focus of whatever's in that room. And also just, making sure the lighting, making sure the camera is at a good point when you get on the screen. Sometimes candidates will be fumbling and it looks like the camera fell, or, it has to be like, get it in position before you get on camera, and mute it, and don't show video right away, just so you're together before you come on screen. And that I think is really good to know. Sometimes you can prepare notes and have those ready for you there. The other thing is just reading the room in a Zoom interview. It's so hard, like you said, Santi, just to it's hard to connect sometimes when you're not in person.
Yeah.
And I prefer being in person too.
Right.
So when you're on Zoom, you have to spend time making sure you're looking at everybody and making sure sometimes on your Zoom, like you have the person's talking is a person that you see on the screen, but try to keep the whole gallery open so you see everybody's expressions. And if you see somebody, like they're kind of puzzled, like ask them, like, do I need to reiterate, or is there something I need to explain further? Do you want to hear more? Things like that. Anyway, that's the Zoom part.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think Zoom is here to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Although most of us now prefer in-person interviews, but you're also having a lot of positions now are hybrid or remote. So, you're not going to be able to make it to the in-person interview, the first round or couple of rounds anyway. So always check your equipment. I mean, you'll be amazed that the lighting, every little thing can be very distracting. So that's the downside of Zoom. You're not in a room. The camera is on you.
Yeah.
So the lighting has to be good. Practice, just record a mock interview. So you just do an interview like as though you're answering a question. Record that, play back, look at it, how
really
you
good.
sound, what the light looks like, what does that room look like, and have people view it and give you feedback. So just the more practice you can have over Zoom, even though you're not really in person, you'll be amazed that people can pick things out. And even your eye contact with the camera. So you think like you're actually looking at them, but your camera could be at a different angle, right? And then so now you're not making eye contact.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. So if you do like
That's
a
a great
mock interview kind of with Zoom, you get to see all those little things that are not quite right, and you can adjust. And I would also say that Zoom can be really your friend, because as Stacey was saying, you can have notes. If you have like a good setup, you could have one screen where you can make it like your teleprompter, have all your talking points listed, right? Not a script, because then the temptation is end up reading the
Robotic.
script. Exactly.
Right.
And you're not reading the room, like Stacey said. You really still want to see how people are, all those body language and facial expressions, they're cues for you. But when you get nervous, sometimes you forget all those important little things that could be just as important. So having a list as your teleprompter really helps. So I think that's an advantage of having Zoom. I also know now a lot of organizations have you submit videos.
Oh.
That's the first
Yeah.
for me.
I
to
know.
hear
Yeah,
that.
that's
My
the
son
me
had
too.
to do that.
A video doing what?
So it's not even a person interviewing you over the camera. It's just
Prompt questions.
prompt questions. The screen comes up. Tell us what makes you a great
God.
candidate. And then you just answer. So it is videoing and recording you, and then it goes through the organization.
Wow, that's interesting.
I know.
So like Indeed, their job board has that opportunity to do that. So yeah.
And so this has all been great. I also want to acknowledge, what should people do? Because this has never really been when I'm about to do an interview, I do get those butterflies where I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to screw it up. Like I've been preparing already, but it's just like, I feel all nervous. But I've had a lot of experience with live performance. So again, those butterflies will go away as soon as it happens to me. So I can do it I've been trained pretty well to just, as soon as the interview starts, I'm in the zone. I'm in the mood. I'm like, all right, I'm doing it now. All I'm thinking about is this interview. But what tips do you have for those that, again, struggle with that get really nervous maybe during an interview, or they said something that they maybe was wrong or something, and then that stays in the back of their head or something. So what tips and recommendations do you have for people who get really nervous during an interview?
So I think people respond different ways when they get nervous. Some people fidget, which you don't want to do on camera.
Yeah.
Keep your hands below. And or we talk really fast and we keep talking, and we keep talking and talking, or we say
Like way too much.
way too much, right? So what I would recommend, if you do one of those things or other things, we all have our thing that we do, is to stop after you've answered a question or pause before you answer a question. And instead of going on, you could say, I can give you more information, but maybe I'll stop there and see if you want to hear more. That's one way you can handle it. In an interview, when someone asks a question, it's usually like a 1 to 2 minute response. When an interview starts, there's usually what we call the elevator pitch, where they ask, tell me a little bit about yourself. And sometimes candidates can get lost in this whole conversation around that. So it's really good to prepare an elevator pitch, which sounds really weird to say. Elevator pitch sounds very salesy, but it's really like a short summary of your experience as it relates to this work and why you're interested in the role. So it's just something that should just naturally roll off your tongue to tell this organization that you're interviewing for. And then the other thing at the end of the interview, you can always ask, you could say, I'm really excited about this role. Are there any concerns that you have that maybe I can address now? Because if you're thinking like, oh, I should have said this, or I'm sensing that maybe I didn't do so well in this area, maybe there's a way you can address it before you get out of that room.
Yeah. And so now I know that I haven't gone through an employer that does this, but I know a lot of employers do this, is not just do one interview, but multiple interviews.
Yeah.
So how does that, how should people prepare for that then, right? Like, does it work? Because actually, I don't actually know how it works. So like, let's say you do the first interview and they call you like 2 weeks later saying, oh, we want another interview. What do they expect in that second interview, or what should people expect, or how should they prepare, for that?
Well, you were just preparing someone
Yeah.
yesterday. Weren't you? Do you want to?
So typically in a situation like this, it's very likely you'll be meeting different people. So think about most of the people will want to make sure that you're going to be a good fit with their team. So the first round could be just somebody from their HR or the people development team,
Yeah.
or the person that you're going to be working with, your direct supervisor. But then sometimes they go, well, this candidate sounds great, but I like second opinion. So they may involve other people, could be your coworkers or your, somebody else from another department that will actually work closely with you as well. So it's an opportunity for them to get a sense of what the other people in the team that you'll be working closely with, what their sense is. They want to make sure that when they hire you, you're going to be a good fit, not just for that role, but everybody else in the organization. So questions tend to be very similar. They're just trying to now see if everybody's going to get along or not. Right?
Gotcha.
So it's the chemistry that they're going for at that point. And I think I would also just, we're talking about nerves. It's like everything else. Practice, practice, practice.
All right.
You just got to keep practicing. And one of the things that I found for myself when I first sort of started, it's just taking any interview you can. May not be the job you want, may not even be the real organization you want, but those are the best ones that you should start with, because you're not that invested in it. And if you get rejected, that's okay. You weren't really that excited. But it's a great opportunity for you to make mistakes, and you're going to get better the next one. So the first 10, you're probably still kind of trying it out. I would say by the 11th or the 12th, you're already so much better than the first 10 you've gone through. So even if it's not the job you want, just take it as a practice. It's like somebody giving you an opportunity to get better, to improve.
I love that you mentioned. And I do want to say I had that multiple interview experience, and one of the questions that they asked me, and I was not prepared for it, was they gave me a scenario. It was, now the following question is a scenario. How would you respond to that? And I remember not answering that question right away because one, I was like, this was not in my practice round, right? It was more of like, I know this work, but your nerves kind of get mixed with you being there, so it gets a little bit. You can lose it at times. So my advice is going back to what you were saying. Take a minute. Don't answer. We have this tendency of like answering the question right away. Just take a minute, and ask yourself that question, and then go from there. And one of the things that if you have an interview in Zoom, taking notes, and the second interview, you have the opportunity to explain something maybe you didn't explain, and you can add it into another question that they ask. Would be an advice that I have from my experience. The other thing at the end of the interview was they asked me, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah.
And usually we always are so prepared with what they're going to ask us. What questions should you ask the employers during an interview when they ask you or give you that opportunity?
Oh my gosh. I would say have a whole list of questions. And you could probably go through as you're in the interview. A lot of them will be answered during that process. And realize at the end that Q&A is usually just like maybe 5 minutes. So you're typically you'll have probably room for 2 to 3 of those questions. So at the end, you might want to just pause when they ask you that question and go through those questions that you prepared, and then identify the top 3 that you really want to ask at that point. And there's so many to ask, but why the position is open, what are they looking for? The question about, do you have any concerns that I can address? I'm really interested in this role. What's their timeline? Sometimes interviews can drag on because you have the first interview, and then they're doing all the first round interviews, so that takes like a week or 2, and then the second round is usually on site if it was on Zoom the first time, and that maybe takes another week. So there's 2 or 3 weeks at least that go by usually during that time. So you want to make sure like you're what that looks like, and also what the next step would be. Like if it is to come back, what when would that be? What do you need to prepare? If you're pending anywhere for a role, I think it's really important to tell them then, because if they're interested in you, they could expedite the process. So pending, saying you've been interviewing, like Jenny said, all around town, and you have a couple offers, or you're in second rounds where you're coming back for the second time with an organization, you should definitely tell that organization that you're interested in. Like I'm pending on 2 positions. I'm coming back for the second or the final round. I'd really like to move forward, for this position particularly. This is, if it is, you always want to be authentic in what you're talking about. But if it's your first choice, you want to let them know right away. It's kind of like when you go to college, this is my first choice for college. Like you want them to know that, and it can make a big difference.
Yeah. And also it's really your opportunity, your chance to ask them what this organization is about. You could ask things like, how would you describe the culture of this organization? Tell me about the team. So this is really where you also want to know if this organization is for you, right? And so you could say, can you tell me a little bit about the team I'll be working with? What are your expectations for this role in the first 10 days, 3 months, So have them give you a sense what you're going to actually step into as well. So this is your chance to interview them. Think about it that way. Yeah.
Perfect. So great. Well, again, this has all been really great tips for our viewers to hear. One thing that I did want to also kind of go into just a little bit, we have about 5 minutes left, is how should people deal with rejection? So let's say you put in all this work, you've gone through all the interviews, but unfortunately they're like, we're not going to move forward with you. 'Cause I know a lot of my friends have gone through that process and again have been, applying to like places like Google, and they just gone through 3 different interviews, really passionate, and then just end up not getting the job. Like, how can people, deal with that type of rejection?
That's, yeah. I mean, it's harsh to get rejected.
It
know?
is.
Yeah, particularly when you've invested so much time
Exactly,
and energy in
yeah.
it. And they have too. I think when you've been through an interview process, everybody's vested. They're really excited. And it could be, I mean, if you get to those final rounds and you're not selected, you should pat yourself on the back. Like, I made it. There's probably through 200 to 300, if not more, applicants. You were selected to go through that interview process and made it in the top round. I mean, that's huge. You should feel very proud of yourself. You can also go back to the person that you're interviewing with and say, gosh, I respect your decision, but I'd love any feedback that you can give me that might help me in my future search. Because, Google is somewhere that I'd really love to work. Like, if you have any recommendations, or please keep me in mind kind of thing. And again, not being pesky about it, but, just, I think we always try to give feedback when, and offer that. I think it's important just growing to be able to have that opportunity. Also in the tech industry right now, they've been laying off a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
So
Well, AI is taking over for real. Like
Right?
a lot of that is scary right now. Yeah.
yeah, so it may not be, again, that rejection may be, due to a lot of other things going on in the economy or, other things going.
Right.
Yeah. And I think when you started out this interview by saying that the rejection, you can't take it personally. I know that's hard, but it's not really about you. It's just who they're looking for. And there is an element of luck involved in every search. right?
Absolutely.
The right time, right place, who
Yep.
you know. So that will happen, but it's just when. And if you're interviewing for an organization like Google, just think about, what's the possibility, what's the percentage of even just getting the first interview. So just kind of have a realistic mindset as well. Everybody wants to work for Google. Everybody wants to work for Apple, but that may not be the first job you're going to land in, but you may get there after several other organizations. So again, think about starting maybe smaller organization or less well known, but build your resume.
Perfect. Santi, did you have any last?
Yeah, I love
Thoughts?
how we're, giving all of these tips. For me, the biggest thing is being authentic and using that in a way where you can really structure who you are into a resume, not the other way around, right? And with rejection, I mean, for this position, this is my first time, and it was a great experience. And I actually was, a coworker was applying with me, and we both are different backgrounds, and she ended up getting the job. But I remember with the last interview, I remember it as really taking a moment and saying, are we a good fit? For myself, for the organization, and for the people we're serving. And when I really asked myself that question and kind of looked at my schedule and everything, I was like, I'm not the fit for this. And when my coworker got the job, I was beyond happy. And like I said, it's really hard to not take it personal, but just remember that it has to do with it's a three-way piece. It's not just you and the employer, it's you, the employer, and the community you're working with or what you're doing. So I think that's really important, and just be authentic, be yourself, and if it doesn't work out, there's something else for you out there, and keep going, keep practicing.
That's right.
That would be my last thing, and hope to see you all at the career fair, and hopefully you guys learned as much as I learned during this, talk with you guys.
Yeah, thank you again, both Jenny and Stacy, for being with us today. This is really, really, really great information. And again, I hope that you guys listening and watching really got something out of it. And yeah, if you guys have any other questions, you could always reach out to us. And We really hope you guys can make it to the career fair. But yeah, that's just about it for Tay Radio Marin. We hope to see you next week for our next show. But thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah.